Good morning.
Welcome to Morning Manna.
We're excited to be with
Morning.
you on this morning. We have Dr. Collins. Dr. Mickey is with us today, and we're going to talk about health. One of the things that a lot is neglected, and especially in the church, we talk about a lot of spiritual things, but we forget that we also live in a natural body. And while we're in this earth suit, there's some conditions that will help us to abide by certain rules. We can live a little longer and maybe if not longer life, definitely a better quality of life. So we're going to open up the floor to Dr. Collins and he can tell you a little about what he does and about his broadcast and fill whatever question that you have. If you are on Facebook or YouTube, if you put your questions in the comment, we'll try to address them. Okay, Dr. Collins.
Good morning, Dr. Hearns, Vanessa. Happy to be with you guys this morning. My life has been dedicated to healthcare. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, and being a board certified family physician for over 20 years, my career has kind of evolved over time. Originally, I was heavy into clinical operations, all settings, seeing patients, delivering babies, taking care of people in an outpatient clinic setting. Teaching, that's something, Ed, that I have a true passion for in developing the perspectives and the talent tomorrow's healthcare leaders. But I'm in a position now where I'm trying to transition a little bit from direct patient care to global patient care, and I'm doing that not only in geriatrics, where I serve as medical director, in skilled nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, hospice care. My favorite thing, and be honest with you, is put me a little bit outside my comfort zone is becoming a media personality. And myself, with my co-host Karen Love, since November, we've been doing the Ask Dr. Mickey show. And it's broadcast on FM 99.1, on thegospelnashville.com, AM 790. Or you can, of course, join us on our Facebook platform, Ask Dr. Mickey page at Facebook. But it's evolved a little bit because it's not just about talking about health. And I think you nailed it. Health is so multifaceted, and it's you have to encompass a physical health, a physical body, the mental health, the emotional health, the spiritual health, and to promote true health and wellness. And we've been blessed to have a series of different guests and experts that kind of share their different perspectives. And so far, we think it's getting some pretty good traction. And I'm not quite sure exactly what it's doing for the audience, but Karen and I always leave feeling like we've accomplished something and we've actually been through a therapy session ourselves.
Oh, that's awesome. And also, I forgot to mention what bringing Dr. Collins in. He was my medical director at HC Cumberland. He's also been a medical director and still is a medical director for several different facilities. He's a friend. He's a vice chairman of my board for Adullam Bible College, fraternity brother, and somebody who's been a great inspiration to me down through the years. And he's also has some good advice as far as keeping your body healthy and preserving your temple so that when you think about it, now maybe he can talk a little bit about also when senior health, some of the challenges that seniors face in the healthcare. If you want to talk about some of that.
Absolutely. And I'd be remiss if I did mention, the feeling has been mutual. You've been a blessing in my life, and I put you in that category as somewhat of an angel. I don't know where you came from, brother, but I'm sure glad you came. Senior care and geriatrics is something that I've always gravitated towards. It's a specialty like others. Everyone is more comfortable and familiar with pediatrics or cardiology or even obstetrics and gynecology, where you're taking care of that one aspect or that one demographic. Ed, if we are fortunate enough, we're all going to get older, and we all, going to have those senior healthcare needs. And that they're a bit of a marginalized sector because they're older, they're slower, they're infirmed, and they're usually, often just put to the side. And a lot of times people are very conflicted as to how to meet those needs. Let me give you a few examples. Especially in our community, it's somewhat of a taboo thing, and it may seem frowned upon and not so popular to put a loved one into a nursing home. or to refer someone when the time comes for end of life care in hospice. But part of my platform, whether it's on the radio show or just what I do in my everyday clinical life in leadership, is to really just try to change that perspective a little bit to get people to understand. I'm blessed to have turned 50 years old, and I've made my desires and wishes and needs quite known in my family. If my life and my circumstances change, I don't want to be a burden on them physically, because I'm not a little guy, and to have to meet to my physical care needs and take care of me, and it's somewhat unfair. But as you and I are well familiar, there are places that are skilled and trained and have the staff equipped to not only take care of my healthcare needs, but to preserve my quality of life, give me social, interactions with peers, and develop an extended family. But that doesn't mean that the family should, forget us and just put us there. Families are always welcome to engage, to attend, to make sure that my needs are being met, and to still enjoy me just in this different setting. So, it's different. It's not just giving them a pill. It's making sure that we're getting them up out of bed. It's making sure that their dietary needs are met. It's making sure that holistically, their mental and emotional needs are being there. And one thing that's really not talked about a lot, and this as a former administrator and leader in these facilities, our social workers play a tremendous role in making sure that their financial assets are secured and properly allocated the way that they're supposed to be. Because the one ugly aspect of this is, elder abuse. Sometimes we hold on to our seniors because they get that check, they get those resources, they get that retirement, and if their mental capacities or their cognitive function tends to start to fade a little bit, there's no way to guarantee that their needs and its intended purposes, that's what the resources are being used for. So putting your loved one in these kind of facilities, folks such as myself take care of your medical needs. I have a wonderful team of nurses and nurse practitioners and therapy, but it's also those social aspects that are being met when we put our loved ones in the hands of facilities such as this.
Okay, that's good. I noticed that you mentioned hospice also. Can you kind of elaborate on, from your knowledge, why we struggle so much sometimes as people to allow hospice care to our loved ones? Is some type of mental block, or
I feel like that's the end when we hear it, but it's not.
yeah.
Yeah, death is terrifying. Let's just be honest. It's something about the finality of death, and many of us are in denial, and many of us don't want to accept that, whether it's in our personal situation or it's our loved ones, and we struggle with that. So part of my platforms and my certain clinical services to kind of educate people to get a better understanding. Hospice, there's so many myths and information that's put out there. Hospice is not a place. It can be, but it's a service. It's a service that we tailor make to your loved ones' needs in accordance with their wishes, to allow them to die with dignity, with comfort, in that setting of their choosing. Many of them are in their own home, surrounded by families, and provide caregiving services so that they're comfortable as their time approaches. We don't just go out and say, hey, why don't you come and do hospice? You have to be eligible for a hospice, which means you have some type of health condition where you have an anticipated life expectancy of 6 months or less. Thing about that is we can recertify you at the end of that period of time. We're going to evaluate, see if you're declined. The funny thing about this, Ed, is people don't understand that we've actually had to discharge people from hospice because the quality of care that the hospice company that I work for and represent, Heart and Soul, they provide exceptional care, from the caregivers to the nursing, from the volunteers. Dr. Karen Love, my co-host, who was a volunteer coordinator for years there. And also, again, the social services and the chaplain services to help to prepare not the patient, also the family for what's imminent, unfortunately.
I like how you mentioned that he's already communicated.
And I guess I put a show on.
Oh.
I'm sorry, that's right.
No, you're okay. I didn't realize it was kind of stuck. But you communicated your wishes to your family already, so that they know the plans, and they're probably written somewhere, so they're not guessing. So I guess it's important for us is to know what our family wants, and we don't make those decisions for them, because they may have a medical power of attorney, or maybe mention those things that we could have in place, so that no one's guessing at what we want. Or if we want to be an organ donor, they're not going to just unplug us so that they can get the organs. There's a process that we as Black people should have things in place, so that no one has to wonder what we would want done.
I know we're still having a little bit of a connection problem here. We'll apologize for that. For some reason, our internet is just not doing right today. So we're trying to get as much as we can in here. And we want just to communicate health. We talk about the extremes of like hospice and nursing home, but let's say that you're a senior and you're still in relatively good health and you're not looking at those things right away. What can you do now to preserve your health, so that you won't have to enter into that any earlier than normal? I don't know, maybe, were you able to hear me, Dr. Collins, or somewhere there's frozen something?
There you go.
I think I heard the gist of it. You're saying, what can we do now as seniors? It's true in all aspects of life. When we know better, we do better. And, especially people of color, sometimes because of all the systemic issues that we have, whether it's the financial institution, just the healthcare industry, or our personal place of employment, racism and that adverse feeling that we get sometimes keeps us from being fully engaged. But it's important, first and foremost, that you have a regular physician that you see. We spend more time and resources getting ready for church or our nice events and getting our cars clean and our oil changes every 3,000. We check all these lists for these things that we can't take with us, but sometimes we neglect our bodies. And it may be due to some of the reasons I mentioned. It may be financial. It may be out of ignorance. It's people like me and you that we get on these platforms and we try to remove as many of those obstacles as we can. And the first thing that they can do is they need to know their current health status. You know what your outsides look like. Sometimes we need to know what our insides look like. So getting those recommended blood tests to look at your liver and kidney functions. If you're feeling tired and weak, checking your blood counts and your vitamin D. And of course the big C. Cancer. They're recommended cancer screening recommendations. You can go to the United States Preventive Services Task Force or the American Cancer Society. They're pretty much in alignment, some nuanced differences, but for me, as a practical practitioner, it doesn't matter. You need to know what your risk is and what your screening recommendations based on your age and your family history is. Because with early detection, the big C can be dealt with. It can definitely be treated. Often it can be cured. And we tend to subscribe to the whole deficit model where I know people who get cancer, they've done this and that, and they still want to die, or they get sick, but they're looking at that isolated incident. There's so many that have been cancer survivors and have been able to still have a fruitful quality of life and enjoy their families and still contribute on a high level. So those are some very key basic things that we can do. And it all starts with having a relationship with your provider, someone who's compatible. Black doctors are only 5% of all the doctors. So you may or may not be able to find a doctor of color or one that matches your ethnicity, but you can find one who's culturally competent and aware. So that's where we start. But then we can take it back. We've known since we were about 6 years old, probably 5 years old, that if it looks wrong, it seems wrong, it probably is wrong.
Yeah.
Let's stop doing some of the things that aren't, really benefiting us. Excessive drinking and eating and smoking and illicit drug use and not getting enough sleep and really lack of physical activity. Despite
Yes.
all the medications, all the things that we talk about, heart disease has been number one for years, and it will continue to be number one. So we need to take care of that heart, and it starts with loving ourselves, knowing our status, and putting certain things in action. We call them lifestyle modifications that can actually maintain and sustain our life.
Wow. That's good.
Can you mention some of those lifestyle modifications?
Yes, Vanessa, that's a great question. I did this presentation. I'm going to touch quickly on something you mentioned too about, the tools as we get older. You mentioned healthcare proxy. Ed and I know about the post forms, DNR, DNI, do not resuscitate, do not intubate, and who makes the decisions. If we don't have these things in place, we can really be in big trouble because it's a personal note. My dad passed in 2006 at the young age of 55. Wasn't sick, went to the hospital. And even though I was a healthcare provider, I knew medicine, I really hadn't had that conversation. My dad was a brother. He was Black. We didn't talk about those things. He wanted to protect us. He wanted to be strong.
Yeah.
And he looked somewhat like Johnny Cochran. So pardon the corny analogy. I believe that preparation is much better than desperation and speculation. Because if we're not prepared, when we get into that hospital scenario in the ICU, where the bill is $3,000 to $5,000 per day,
Right.
and everyone is coming and saying, "Hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do?" And they're putting that pressure on you. If you're not, you're gonna have to speculate. And sometimes we make a decision that we have to wrestle with for the rest of our lives.
Emotions.
And it's important that we have those discussions now to know who in our family knows us best, and we've articulated those issues to, and should be the healthcare proxy. It may not be the oldest, it may not be the one in the city with you. It could be that person who you have designated. And before you lose your capabilities, it's important that we spell those things out. And I tell my patients, start doing it now. If you have a chronic disease, if you have dependents, i.e. kids or people who are dependent on you, it's important that you have plans in place, because tomorrow ain't promised, and we hey. So in the course of that presentation, to get to your original question, Vanessa, people get frustrated because you come to see your doctor and you say, "Hey, eat right, exercise right," and what does that really mean? So lifestyle modifications depends on exactly where you are. So if you're a smoker, smoke less. It's difficult. So I'm going to try to set targets to get you to eventually stop smoking, but smoke less. If you're an overeater or you have poor dietary habits, I'm going to get specific things in accordance with your healthcare needs, whether you have heart issues, whether you're diabetic, whether you have heart failure, you need to really watch that sodium. It's important that we educate our patients as to what diet exactly means for them, because now everybody wants a cheat code. Everybody wants a GLP-1. They want to do the keto diet. I'm going to stay off meat so I can look right for that reunion. Lifestyle modifications are exactly what that is. It's something that you must do on a daily, and it requires discipline and knowledge. And again, to say this a second time, that one of the most important things you can do is stay active. No one wants to go to the gym because everyone doesn't feel that they're right for the gym, because everybody in the gym looks swole and right and experienced. So there's a little insecurity there. So a lot of people don't want to go to the gym and be lifting them liberty dumbbells or getting out of breath. And we're grown. We have to understand where we are and do what we need to do, but we can be creative. I tell my seniors, go to the mall and walk around for about 2-3 hours. You don't have to worry about the conditions. You're walking, window shop, based upon your situation, but stay active. And one other thing, lifestyle modifications is important. Ed and I have dealt with some pretty sad cases of people who you can just see their mental function just deteriorate. Dementia is a scary thing, and we can do things to prevent that as well. One, knowing your history. But I love word games. I love Sudoku. I love puzzles, things that stimulate that actually kind of help. And the last thing, Ed, we have a frat brother. His name is Eric Mann. Shout out to Eric Mann. He's the CEO and director for the YMCA based out of Jacksonville, Florida. And we're in this golf group together, and we were playing golf, and it was nothing but God, because I overheard him talking to someone about an initiative it was doing. It was called Pedals for Parkinson's. Now, bikes, and they got these little things now, even when you can sit at your desk and you can keep your feet moving. And there's lots of studies that show that this motion alone can help to improve neurocognitive function and decrease and delay the progression of dementia. So I'm a proponent that in our facilities, I don't expect some of our seniors to hop on Peloton bikes and be able to ride, but they can definitely do something to kind of do these things. So again, if we know better, we do better. And it's important that we kind of think outside the box to meet our patients where they are so that we can extend their life and preserve their quality of life.
Yeah, and I like what you said about with the seniors. It's always important to stress small steps, especially if you're not regularly visiting a doctor. Sometimes you don't know, like they said, lots of people die every year shoveling snow, because you hadn't did nothing all year, and now you got 30 pounds of snow and a shovel, and after a while that heart just gives out. So I think it's really important to emphasize small steps for those who are not necessarily under your care and you don't know what their habits are.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off of that, weight loss. Some people are way overweight, right? And it's a daunting task to say, I want to lose 50, I want to lose 60 pounds. But that's what they want to do to get to that with the internet or, what that number is in their mind. They need to understand that 50 pounds, 5% of losing your body weight can make all the difference in your healthcare metrics, in terms of your heart function, in terms of your hemoglobin A1C if you're a diabetic, in terms of your cholesterol values. You got to start small and let that snowball effect kind of happen, because often, even the GLPs, I think they're wonderful drugs. Just to spend the time, I want to clean it up. I say a cheat code. They want to do it and not really do. They work best when you do it and you're doing your lifestyle modification. And they're really good at getting the ball rolling. And the studies are showing now, because GLPs were originally to treat diabetes. They lose weight. Of course, insurance doesn't cover it for weight loss purposes, because they make money when you're overweight and sick and all these other kind of things. But if you have a diagnosis like diabetes, you probably are eligible for GLP-1. But studies show out that they improve the heart function and they delay progression of dementia. So again, understanding the facts, and you get those facts from people like me, your healthcare provider, not necessarily from the comments section on social media or the barbershop or hairdresser, where it's just gossip. So, yeah.
Now, when you say GLP, can you explain what you're talking about? Some people may not be familiar with the term GLP.
Yeah, well, GLPs are, that P stands for, protein. So they're naturally, they're medications, and many of them are compounded. The ones that people see on TV right now and getting a lot of traction, it's been a while now, is the Wegovy or Ozempic. Wegovy is when you're being treated for diabetes. Same name, same drug. Ozempic is when it's focused on weight loss. That's the GLP-1. That was the first one that came out. The generic one is semaglutide. A lot of people are familiar with this. Then you have the GLP-2. There's tirzepatide or Mounjaro. A little bit more potent and can definitely have an extra weight loss reduction in it. There's a new one out, and this new one, the GLP-3, is the only one that's FDA approved. I want to say that, Ed, because we do a lot of different things, and sometimes, especially Black people, we get fickle and we say, "Oh, that's not even FDA approved." But neither is that Hennessy and Coke. Neither is that that Camel, that Couport, all those type of wings. So let's, we can't be picking and choosing. But evidence-based medicine is what I practice, and there's lots of evidence on how well these drugs do. The first generation, how they work is they slow down your GI transit, and as a result, your stomach stretches a little bit. When you drink water, believe it or not, if you drink water while you're eating and you eat a little bit slower, you allow your stomach to stretch. That shuts back the hunger feedback to your brain, and most people will stop eating. But many of us eat like it's a race, especially if it's a buffet or you got, a house full of bros and they got 10 boxes of chicken. You want to make sure you get all the chicken you can. We eat and eat and eat, and before you know it, ooh, I'm full, right? But if we take our time, enjoy everybody, and drink water, you would notice that feedback mechanism will stop your hunger center from saying, I'm hungry, I want to eat. The GLPs kind of do that. They slow down the GI transit, so you feel fuller quicker, and as a result, you tend to not overeat. One issue with the GLP-1s that has gotten better as the generations have come out is, you lose weight, but you don't always lose weight where you want it. So you hear about the Ozempic butt and the Ozempic face, especially for women of color who want to lose a little weight, but they want to keep everything where it is, but they're noticing that they might be losing their curves, or they might be losing muscle mass in their face, and that's a little bit scary. That's what stops you from taking. Well, the GLP-2s are a little bit better doing that. The GLP-3s are even better at the weight loss and preserving that excess muscle wasting that comes along with losing weight, especially if you're losing a lot of weight.
But to remember what you start, you got to maintain. So if you're using those medications, that's not just temporary. It can be, but usually when people stop, the weight will come back plus. So you don't want to rely on a medication, but if you're at a health place, you might need it to get you started on your lifestyle modifications so that it's something you can maintain after you stop.
And one other thing, if you don't mind touching on,
that's a great point. A lot of people.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing about that. Yeah. But you bring up a good point. Now, microdosing. Microdosing is sometimes a maintenance. Instead of going weekly, you might go every other week, maybe once a month. I believe in microdosing. We excessively eat, we excessively drink. And I'm going to say something that may not be popular on your show, but marijuana. Marijuana is something that a lot of people use in abundance and they do too much of. But if it's microdose the way it's supposed to be, we can take most of these drugs that our patients are taking in these facilities for appetite, for mood disorders, for sleep, and do it the right way. So similar things that we use in excess and we overindulge and we give it a bad name, if it's carefully prescribed and administered in a microdosing way, I'm glad Vanessa mentioned that it can really, really help to meet your needs and sustain you. So sorry, I just wanted to mention that because sometimes people think, I don't want to use this because it's bad. Right. Use it under the hair of a healthcare professional and you get the desired results.
That's good. Actually, that's a good introduction to what I was going to ask you about to speak on. Misinformation on the internet and how that's affecting us as a people. Stuff that's not scientifically based is just somebody came up with on their mind and putting it out there.
Yeah, like I see like a weight loss patch, and I think there is no patch. That's just maybe someone trying to push that.
Yeah, it's haters gonna hate. And, good news ain't good news, right? So people like to perpetuate gossip and bad news. But, sometimes you get what you pay for. So if you go to that shade tree mechanic, you might wonder why, you got, a lot of other things that's going to still go wrong with your vehicle. You have to go and have a good relationship with a healthcare expert that you trust, that's giving you good information. Now, I'm different. I like when my patients come in informed. I like when they come in with questions so we can talk about them. We got an opportunity to debunk these, whether or not that's bad information, misinformation, or just not quite accurate. I'm trying to get in a position where we're creating lots of different circles where the radio show is one platform because we're talking about these. We spent a whole show talking about, frustrations with the healthcare systems. Patients think that, the doctors are this or the doctors are that, but the doctors play this big of a part in your healthcare because insurance decides who you can see, how much you got to pay. Then you got the system that's going to schedule you 6 months out, 3 months out, what have you, and you might get this amount of time with the doctor. He gives you a prescription, tells you come back in 3 months, and then prescription is mishandled by the pharmacy or something, and you call the doctor's office, it goes to everything is so inundated and it frustrates everybody, and I think people were a little bit refreshed to hear that, I can admit we got flaws in the system. I'm putting together something, and I mentioned to you before with a group of outstanding Black men called Hero House, where we are trying to create an environment for men. Hero House, men, leave your capes at the door. And you're going to come on in. Shout out to Dr. Terrence Schofield. He's associate provost at Trevecca, former senior minister, athlete. And we have a really good team where we're trying to create an environment that is not as sterile as the clinic, but we get brothers to come on in and be side by side with physicians and lawyers and industry workers and finances, where we can all the vulnerabilities, but we're going to use that. Here's the secret. I hope they're not paying too much attention. We're really trying to get them to come there so that they can improve their we'll have mental health professionals that we can refer them to. I'll see them on the spot. We have financial advisors, we have physicians where we're going to teach them some of the things that we're talking about now. And we have to be creative to really try to get the people to not only receive the information, but to go on to that next step, because the healthcare industry can be very challenging to navigate. And along with that, it's going to be dispelling some of the misinformation and untruths that Vanessa was talking about.
Yes, that's very true. It's very hard to navigate it sometimes. And it's good to have people like yourself who are in the field that actually care about people not prescribing medication because they're getting kickbacks from pharmaceuticals, but actually trying to help people to have a better quality of life. You say you lost your father at a young age, pretty much, and mine was at a young age. And basically there were things, I know in my father's case, the things that he could have done to prevent that. And his mostly was from smoking. And of course, back in the days, they didn't make a big deal about smoking. They understood that cigarettes were killing people decades before they actually even put a warning on the package. And I think one of the things that we're dealing with today is they understand the dangers of social media to children, but they're still not really dealing with that because they're making billions of dollars. And at some point, that's going to have to come to light too.
It's a capitalistic society. We do things. Black people, we probably the number one demographic that spends the most money. We feed these capitalistic desires and we ignore the personal harm and ramifications. If I may want to touch on something else, I don't know how much time we got. I have until 10 before I have to have another commitment. So it's something that you and I have talked about. I was honored to pen the foreword in your book. And something that's become really important to me. We know about mental health. Black people don't want to deal with mental health issues because we deny it. And we know we used to call them crazy, we used to call them special and all this other kind of stuff. But we another myth and untruth, right? All these vaccines cause autism and all these different things. Like, some things can happen to people, and we don't know how it's going to happen to some people, especially Black people, because only 3% of clinical research participants are Black. So we got certain kind of DNA, certain kind of health, history that might react differently, and we don't know, and that's nobody's fault. But I know a lot of people who took the vaccine, my kids, and they're not autistic. Mm-hmm. But the issue is we used to call them, pardon this, I'm just speaking a little loose, but to make a point, special needs are retarded. We can't say those kind of things. But back in the day, it could have been autism. So the thing about technology and data is we become more specific in our ability to diagnose and categorize something as such. And it may seem new to a lot of people, but a lot of this stuff has been here. How many times people say, oh, she died of old age. She had cancer. Or she may have had heart disease, and we just didn't know. But now that we got better technology, we can diagnose and we can categorize, and we can tell what it is. Same thing with addiction is where I'm going with this. I'm rocking this little mug here. I don't know if you can see Willow Grove Recovery. I've been dealing with addiction and rehab services for quite some time. And it's another thing that marginalizes a lot of people. And a lot of them don't look like us, but a lot of them do. We've accepted the family uncle who's, on drugs and strung out. We've accepted those kind of things. But the truth of the matter is there's a path to get back to being a contributing member of society, but we have to come to grips with this. Nobody wants to deal with their doctor or their teacher who are just a regular human being. We can deal with them having high blood pressure and diabetes, but we don't want to deal with a doctor or a pastor, being bipolar or schizophrenic. Mm-hmm. We don't want to deal with a doctor or a school bus driver who is opioid user, right? Even though he may be in treatment.
Right.
But the first step to get comfortable, we have to first get uncomfortable and talk about these things and realize that addiction affects people differently. Often they don't even know it's coming. Ed, you and I might both have surgery, and we might get some Percocet. It makes me sick. You strong, you don't need it. But we have a friend who take Percocet, and we wonder why it's taking him so long to get better. And next thing you know, he's taking more and more pills. That's because he is an addict. He has a gene. He has an issue where he can't, and that's just a difference. So the problem is a lot of times physicians don't figure it out till it's too late because we're conflicted because that addict is coming and paying that copay and everything, and it's just that system. So while I don't like the fact that the politicians have taken my ability to treat my patients the way I want to, I can in these facilities. I have certain privileges, but in the outpatient clinic, I'm a Black doctor. If I'm writing Suboxone, which is a treatment for opioid dependence. So if I'm writing Percocet and all these things, they're going to look at me. They may even come investigate me.
Yeah.
And I think I reserve the right. So the answer is going to be, well, I'm scared, so I'm going to refer my patient to a pain clinic. Now they're going to a pill mill, and that becomes the priority. And they're letting their diabetes, their blood pressure, their heart disease, their cancer screening, they're letting that go because that pill mill is only treating that one thing. And if they're an addict, addicts tend to not just use medications. It enters into their personal lives with strange relationships, their jobs, they lose jobs. They may even have some infractions with the law, DUIs, public and drug intoxication, or trying to buy and or distribute, drugs. All that comes into making an addict, not someone who just uses a medication. But I'm big on trying to dispel those myths and really try to champion people who need recovery. And the first thing that we can do is as a provider, sit and look with them eye to eye. I saw some patients we just opened at Willow Grove Recovery right near you guys in Palmyra. Are you familiar with the organization? And I sat down face to face, and the nurse was wondering, well, you don't want to go and I said, no, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to talk to my patient face to face, and that they're safe and that we have a plan for them, not just while in the hospital, but even when they get out, because this is going to have to battle and change probably for the rest of their lives.
That's very good. Thank you, Dr. Collins.
I had to get that off my chest.
That's okay. Thank you for being with us today. And before we go, just if you could take a few seconds to tell people they may have other health questions or concerns, how to follow you on the Dr. Mickey show, where you address some of those questions and maybe how they can get in contact you for other concerns.
Thanks. Yeah, so again, my name is Dr. Collins, but now people call me Dr. Mickey. This is my childhood name, and we have a weekly radio show at Tuesdays at 11:30 Central Standard Time on 99.1 FM station, 790 AM, or you can go to thegospelnashville.com and listen live and check out the show. But many people may be working, so we also have our Facebook Live portfolio where you can actually watch the interactions between myself and Karen Love. In order to do that, you need to follow us at the Ask Dr. Mickey page on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And if some people have a little bit more, because I've gotten some direct emails where they want to send something because it may be sensitive, and you can send me an email at Ask Dr. Mickey, spell it out, ASKDRMICKEY 911 at gmail.com. And other than that, Ed, I move around and I like it that way. You can catch me at any of our facilities. If you live in Nashville, the Bordeaux area, I'm medical director at Eaton Creek Post-Acute, in Mount Juliet, Cedar Creek Post-Acute, out in Goodlettsville up north, Alta Heights Post-Acute, and all the way out in Clarksville, Park Meadows Post-Acute. And also one of my favorite ones is the champion of hospice, Heart and Soul Hospice. Check us out, talk to us, visit with us, even if you don't need it, just to educate yourself about it so that you may be able to be an advocate for others in need if not within your own family. So, Ed, Manessa, thank you for giving me this opportunity today to come here and just share a little bit. And as you can see, I'm passionate about this, and I only want the best for our community so they can live years to come.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. And before we close, Vanessa has a Black History moment she wants to share with us, and then we're going to prepare to close the show.
Yeah, can't live without or do without our Black History moment. And you're a part of a history as a doctor. Very few. But I just wanted to quickly mention a number. Sometimes we hear a number and we can remember, or it's associated with a certain person. Like you may have your favorite number, or you hear the number 23. For me, I would associate that being Michael Jordan, because we remember. So some of us, if we were to say number 44.
Who's that?
Oh, I don't know LeBron's number. No, I don't. But of a certain age, you might know number 23. But if we say number 44, for a lot of us, we remember that number. So there are some people who may be jealous of that number, because that number was our first Black president, number 44, who was, I would say, for me, one of the best. And while he was in office, he won a Nobel Peace Prize. It wasn't given to him because I wanted to get somewhere else in life, but he actually earned it.
Yes.
So he's only had the one wife. He has 2 children by that one wife. There are no scandals about a number 44 that can be brought up or mentioned. So we just want to give our respects to number 44 is President Barack Obama. You may say former, but you could say President Barack Obama, and his lovely, beautiful wife, Michelle Obama, who was very classy. In one of her speeches, she did admonish people when they go low, what we are to do. But when people do go low in life, we know to pray, so that we're going to pray for those that who are maybe having some cognitive issues or jealousy or don't understand what they are doing. But we as people have to understand that we have been given an opportunity to voice our opinion through voting. So we need to make sure that we do go out and vote responsibly, so that we can have another number 44.
Yes. May never be another one, but definitely would be a number somewhere that we could be proud of. And it just goes to everything that we do on our show. We want to highlight aspects that come home to people. And the Black History Moment is something that we celebrate. We do it during the month of February. And just to remind ourselves of the great accomplishments of Black people, because Black history is really no different from history. It's all a part, except that history for us has been his story.
Yeah.
Black history is our story that's also history. It's a part of all. So there really is no Black history or white history or red history. It's all history. But we get an opportunity to shed the light on the history that has been ignored for so long, so that we want to be included in history, because American history is our history. Without us, there would not be no in America. Without the Chinese, there would not even be a railroad in this country. Without the Indians, there was no land for us to take from. So all of this is history. And we thank God for it.
Don't stop now. That was good.
So again, we want to.
I was just gonna say, be cool, Ed, if we could make Jesus cool. If we could make Jesus cool. If Jesus had a social media page, then everybody might actually listen, because Vanessa mentioned something. What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do?
Yes.
Sorry, it was just y'all preaching to me right now.
And we want to reach people, with the gospel, and then sometimes with practical, because Jesus had practical teaching also. So it's all a part of a 360-degree life. We don't want to leave this out. We don't want to be so spiritually minded that so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good. But at the same time, we don't want to be so fleshly minded that we ignore the things of the spirit, because it takes all of it combined in order to make a complete persons. That's why Jesus always asks people, will you be made whole? Are you going to be ready to be complete? Are you going to be ready to really stop the smoking? But are you going to also be ready to start attending services, praying, worship? And that's what we're all about. Again, we really thank you, Dr. Collins, for being with us on today. And we have to have you again. If you want to see Dr. Collins again, put it in the content on the comment section. And don't forget, check out Ask Dr. Mickey on Facebook Live or on the radio stations that he mentioned. And we want to be able to promote health among each other. Thank you for being with us. As always, we're going to close in prayer and say, Father, in the name of Jesus, we're just asking right now, God, that you would touch that person listening. Lord, maybe they're struggling with mental health issues. Maybe they're struggling with addictions. Or maybe they just have a health concern in their body, and maybe they're just not taking it well. Lord, I pray that you would encourage them and lead them, guide them to a healthcare specialist that can help them in the area. Let them not be ashamed of mental health concern, God, and let them not be embarrassed about trying to find out about ways to lose weight and improve their health. God, we're just praying that somebody watching on today will find it to say, you know what, today I'm going to change. Today I'm going to do better about my body. Today I'm going to start working on these habits. And God, give them the strength and the courage, Lord, and also give them the mind and touch their hearts and their spirit, Lord. Those that are not saved, give them the mind to accept Jesus as Lord and as Savior. And we give you the praises for all things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
God bless you. Thank you again. And we'll see you next week on
Morning Manna. Thank you again, Dr. Collins.